Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of WION VOA Co-Production. My name is Molly Gambhir. As Russia continues with its full-scale attack against Ukraine, the West's sanctions aim to punish Moscow, and the impact of these measures is already being seen. Global oil prices soared on Tuesday as President Joe Biden announced that the U.S. will be banning imports of Russian energy, a move that could have a dramatic impact when it comes to punishing the Russian president's regime for its invasion of Ukraine. The White House Bureau Chief, Patsy Widakuswara, getting us more in this detailed report.
Gas prices are skyrocketing in the U.S. In California, drivers are paying about 30% more than a year ago. And it's about to get worse.
The United States is targeting the main artery of Russia's economy. We're banning all imports of Russian oil and gas and energy. That means Russian oil will no longer be acceptable at U.S. ports, and the American people will deal another powerful blow to Putin's war machine.
As President Joe Biden announced the ban, the United Kingdom said it would phase out imports of Russian oil this year. The European Union said it would reduce demand for Russian natural gas by 2/3 this year. With a supply shortage and a price increase, analysts say Moscow's energy revenue may not be greatly impacted in the short term. But ultimately, the ban is expected to be very damaging beyond the impact financial sanctions are having on Moscow.
I think it's slightly hard to anticipate the exact hit that it will take because it's going to be related to the oil and gas price in any particular moment. But a significant reduction in Russian oil and gas and coal sales is going to hurt the Russian economy because just increasing unit costs of these commodities is not going to fully make up for such a dramatic turnaround in big economies.
U.S. imports from Russia make up only 8% of America's energy supply, while the EU depends on Russia for 40% of its natural gas and 27% of its oil. Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak spoke to the Associated Press according to Russia's conflict reporting restrictions.
It is impossible to quickly replace the volume of Russian oil on the European market. It will take more than 1 year, and also it will be much more expensive for European consumers.
Biden imposed the ban following intense pressure from both Democratic and Republican lawmakers. He has authorized the release of 30 million barrels of oil from the U.S. strategic reserves, and his officials are reaching out to oil producers Venezuela and Saudi Arabia to offset loss of Russian supply. A Quinnipiac University poll released Monday shows 71% of American respondents back the Russian oil ban, even if it increased gas prices.
I would rather have high gas prices here than an authoritarian regime in the Ukraine.
It's a price to pay for doing the right thing.
The Russian energy ban and ongoing crisis in Ukraine have sharply increased world oil prices, with Brent crude, a price benchmark for global crude, jumping above $132 per barrel on Tuesday. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News, Washington.
And to get in further insights and details, joining us on the broadcast is Voice of America correspondent Jessica Stone in Washington. Hi, Jessica. Tell us more about how Americans are viewing this spike in oil prices as a result of America's decision to punish Moscow.
Well, I think you heard in Patsy's report there, 71% of Americans in a Quinnipiac poll say that they do support this Russian oil ban. But of course, there's always a separation between the polling and the people, right? Because people will tell a pollster one thing and maybe privately mumble and grumble about other things. And I think that's what we will see here. Certainly people I know anecdotally, and myself included, I saw a 25-cent increase in my gas prices over the last weekend. I'm literally taking my car every day or one of my cars every day to the gas station to make sure I have the cheapest gas in my tank because that's how quickly gas prices are going up. We are starting to see gas lines around town at some of the cheaper gas stations. People are willing to wait for better gas prices here and across the country. And we know that this is coming on the heels of rising inflation overall. We just got that consumer price index number this week. week. 7.9% in consumer prices have gone up. That's nearly 8%. It's a 40-year high for American costs just to purchase the basics: food, water, gas. And food prices have also gone up a lot this year, Molly. 2% this year after 9% last year. And of course, we know that the poorest Americans, just like the poorest in any country, get hit the hardest by inflation. We also know that experts say that the food prices are going to continue to increase because of the packaging costs coming out of China, supply chain issues really contributing to this crunch. Economists say inflation will continue to mount, really, because as you are seeing here, the prices of energy and food are both continuing to go up.
Jessica, Washington is turning to Venezuela and Iran now to try and offset the lack of Russian oil in the market and to reduce the inflation. Tell us more about the possible implications of this on the prices of global oil.
Well, there's really a math issue here, right? Because you heard that global crude spiked at $132 a barrel on Tuesday. It's now gone down to $110. But we are going to, oil traders say, continue to see this volatility. Every headline, the people that I know that trade oil say they're getting, if it's a bullish headline, it goes up. If it's a bearish one, it goes down. There's a lot of volatility in the market. That's going to continue to impact prices at the pump. What could change that, though? Well, more oil supply coming from Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Kuwait. There is about 2 million barrels in spare capacity. It does depend how quickly they can get it onto the market because time is of the essence to impact prices. Additionally, you mentioned Iran and Venezuela. Now, both of these countries are under sanctions, so those sanctions would have to be lifted. And if they are, 1.5 million barrels of oil could be contributed to the global supply. What happens if the United States were to ramp up its oil production? That's about 1 million barrels, but that's going to take about a year. Here's the problem. We're looking at making up a gap, essentially, of 3.5 million barrels a day coming from Russia. That's a major hole in the global oil market, and that's why we're seeing prices go up.
Indeed. Jessica, stay with us. Let's also get our viewers the latest coming in from South Korea, where the conservative Yoon Suk-yeol won the country's presidential election on Thursday. The ex-prosecutor defeated his rival, former provincial governor Lee Jae-myung. The election was one of South Korea's ugliest in recent memory, as Voice of America's Bill Gallo reports from Seoul. Take a look.
South Korean media called it the election of the unfavorables. Conservative Yoon Suk-yeol and liberal Lee Jae-myung both had more detractors than supporters, according to opinion polls. Many voters felt the campaign didn't focus on the most important issues facing South Korea. Instead, there were fierce personal attacks and corruption allegations, many involving the candidates' wives, who on multiple occasions were forced to apologize for scandals.
Though both candidates were very unpopular, that doesn't seem to have hurt turnout. There was a record number of early voters and a solid turnout here on Election Day.
77% of registered voters showed up, even though many acknowledged they weren't happy with their options.
There's too much division in Korea, but I think the most urgent thing is the economy. People are finding it hard to get by because of COVID-19.
I didn't like the top two candidates. As I read the news and watched TV, I realized I wasn't the only person who felt that way.
Yoon, the winner, has promised a tougher approach on North Korea. He also has been more critical of China. When it comes to the pandemic, Yoon supports targeted economic support to help businesses and others in need. But he'll be restrained by the rival Democratic Party, which currently dominates the legislature.
Most National Assembly members are from the incumbent ruling party, and there are 2 more years before the next general election, so there's not much he can do.
Perhaps Yoon's biggest challenge will be to unite a country after a particularly nasty election. Bill Gallo, VOA News, Seoul.
And And for more on these developments, going back across now to Voice of America correspondent Jessica Stone, who's with us. Jessica, let's talk about the implications of this change in leadership for the entire region.
Yeah, the Quad, of course, is made up of India, Japan, Australia, and the United States. And South Korea, while not a member, certainly impacts the general accomplishments of the region in terms of its relationships with the Quad countries. And it hasn't really had a good relationship with Tokyo. We are hearing from Yoon that he wants to have a closer relationship with the Quad, that he, as Bill reported there, wants to have a tougher take on North Korea and a tougher stance on China. And one of the ways he's showing that is that he is actively looking for more concessions from North Korea in those talks. He's also trying to order more of those THAAD anti-ballistic missile systems from the United States, which would be able to shoot down potential munitions from North Korea or anywhere from the north. And so far, we're hearing a more conciliatory tone as well from him on Tokyo. That's a real relief here in Washington, because Washington officials want to be able to continue to work with the triad of South Korea, Japan, and the United States with respect to countering Beijing in the region. Interestingly enough, we did get the Chinese Foreign Ministry to actually comment on this election. They congratulated Yoon on his win and actually said, quote, "We look forward to more healthy and stable ties." So we'll see how he manages the differences with China as well. That'll be key.
Indeed, and we will watch out for those developments and updates. Thanks very much for now, Jessica Stone. And with that, it's a wrap on the WION VOA co-production.